Hey guys, we got a great conversation coming up with ESPN's Ashley Brewer. We touched on a lot of topics, had a great conversation in person, and it's coming up in just a second here on Sports Spectrum. But first, want to tell you about our friends at Convoy of Hope. We are so thankful to have them as partners with us here at Sports Spectrum. And what they do is their mission is to simply serve. And thinking about serving those that are living on the fringe, that have fallen into the depths of poverty and suffering. Convoy of Hope believes that they can ease suffering while serving those in need with love and dignity, service, excellence, integrity, advocacy, unity, partnership, and hope. If you're thinking about getting involved in a charity, in a nonprofit that you know is actually doing boots on the ground type of work that's impacting others, man, get involved with Convoy of Hope. They advocate for those in need by delivering things like hot meals, groceries, haircuts, health and dental screenings, family portraits, hygiene kits, and much more. You can learn more and find out more about the great work that Convoy of Hope is doing by checking out convoynation.com. That's the website to donate and get involved. convoynation.com.
Welcome to the Sports Spectrum podcast, where faith and sports collide. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. I am Jason Romano. This is the Sports Spectrum podcast. Make sure you check out our website, sportsspectrum.com, and you can sign up for our daily devotional there. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter there. Simply putting in your email, when you click on that newsletter icon, you can stay in tune to all of what we have going on here at Sports Spectrum. Maybe there's an article or a story or a podcast that you may have missed, a devotional. Maybe it's a magazine story. You can keep abreast to all of what is happening at Sports Spectrum by signing up for our newsletter over at sportsspectrum.com. And it is free, and we actually have a gift for you as well. If you sign up for our newsletter right now, we will send you a 10-day daily devotional written by professional athletes. It's a downloadable PDF right to your email inbox, and it is for free if you sign up right now at sportsspectrum.com. Click that newsletter icon, and you are good to go. And maybe you have a guest idea that you want to see featured here on the show. Well, you can email me directly. Jason@sportsspectrum.com is my email. Jason@sportsspectrum.com. I would love to hear from you. Your ideas are always valued here at Sports Spectrum, and many of the guests that we have on come from people like you, emailing me or even tweeting at us at Sports Spectrum and letting us know who you'd like to see featured on our show. And today, we feature my friend Ashley Brewer, and she was actually featured on the podcast back in the fall of 2018, and at that time, she was working with ABC7 in Los Angeles as a sports anchor and reporter. Well, in 2020, just a couple days before the pandemic was declared, Ashley Brewer got to fulfill her dream and go work for ESPN. But it's not as glamorous as you would think when you start a new job like that and a pandemic hits. Ashley went through it in 2020, and she kind of talks about how God sustained her and brought her through a very difficult time last year. She also talks about her relationship with Kobe Bryant and interviewing Kobe and getting to cover Kobe Bryant for quite a few years when she was in Los Angeles. And then, of course, we remember right before the pandemic, Kobe, of course, and his daughter and many others passed away in that tragic helicopter accident. So I asked Ashley about her experience talking to Kobe and what it was like to be around Los Angeles and all that was happening on that fateful day back in January of 2020 when we lost Kobe and Gianna and so many others in that helicopter accident. We also talk about Ashley's faith. I asked her about a Bible verse that's really kind of stuck with her this past year, and it's a good one, and it's powerful. I think you'll love Ashley. She joins us now, Ashley Brewer, on Sports Spectrum. It's always great when we can welcome a guest back to the show. It's even greater when it's a guest that we can record in person.
Yes.
And today,
finally.
that voice you just heard is Ashley Brewer from ESPN. Hey, Ashley.
Hello. I'm so happy to see you. It's like we were talking, our first time we met was like back at the Super Bowl. I don't even know, 2014.
Yeah,
maybe?
Arizona, and it would have been Seattle against New England.
Yeah. And I don't know if I've seen you since then, but I'm just, we've stayed in touch and it's awesome.
I feel like we might have seen each other at the Super Bowl a few places. And
Probably.
then you moved 10 minutes from where I live because you're now working for ESPN and a pandemic hit.
And
so
then
it's
the
not
world
like we could
down.
see each other or go to church or anything like that.
I know.
So.
I had plans with so many people where I was like, I can't wait to move out here and like meet my friends in New York and go see people. And then like literally 2 days into moving here, we'll get into it, but everything shut down. So happy to be sitting here. Happy to be in Bristol. Life is good. It's awesome.
That's good. I'm glad we're recording it. The weather is better now too, because I have to imagine coming from LA to Connecticut and then you got through the pandemic. At least the weather was good.
Barely.
And then your birthday's in December, I think.
Yep.
So you had to kind of go through your birthday in a pandemic and then deal with the cold weather. What was that like?
And working like through the holidays too. Didn't get to see my family for a really long time in a winter. When I tell you, like, I am not a cold person. Like, I grew up in Phoenix, moved to Los Angeles. I only know sunshine. And I think I am like a sunny, like happy outdoors person. Like, I belong in that kind of weather. I knew moving out here, like, everyone's like, oh, good luck. Like, get a winter jacket, which I did not own. Came out here and I was like, okay, first of all, I wrecked a car. I'm fine. But I wrecked a car because I didn't know how to drive in the snow.
Yeah.
I mean, I fell one time, like totally like messed my hand up because I don't know. I didn't know ice was a thing and you can slip on it and you can fall and eat it really hard. I mean, yeah, like it's just been a whirlwind.
Do you remember the first time you got in a car and it was snowing really hard and you had to drive in it?
Yeah, I called my mom and I was like crying. I'm like, what am I doing? How do I do this? And, everyone just says the same thing, like take it slow, but you can't really prepare for it. You just got to do it. One of those things, just like suck it up and go for it. And I remember I was like going on a night shift too. So it was like I was going to do a late show, super late at night. And I was like, okay, first of all, I can't see. Second of all, I'm freezing and I don't know how to drive. And I had a little BMW and that thing was just slipping all over.
Yeah.
I'm like already dreading the next winter. I'm just trying to not think about it.
Four-wheel drive, Ash. That's the way to get.
So I got a four-wheel drive. Thank goodness.
Good. Yeah, that's like the saving grace of living in the Northeast is the four-wheel drive gets you through it.
True.
So you're on SportsNation and SportsCenter right now.
Yes.
Tell us about the role and what you're doing at ESPN before we kind of get to the backstory of how it all came about.
Yeah. Right now, my schedule's like crazy and all over the place. I'm working just like nonstop, which I love. I prefer that. I like to be busy. I'm doing about 2 days a week on SportsNation, which is a really fun relaunch of the show, obviously on ESPN Plus, and then getting to live my dream doing SportsCenter, which I never thought would actually happen.
Right.
Like, when I first came out here, they were like, yeah, I'll get you some SportsCenters here and there. I never thought it would actually happen. And then I got the call in September to fill in on my first one, and then just kept getting more and more and more. And now I guess I've kind of become a regular, which is so crazy. I literally like sit next to people and I'm like, you're Kenny Mayne. Oh my gosh. You spend my whole life watching you guys and looking up to you, especially in the sports family I grew up in. SportsCenter was the staple in my household. So to be able to be one of them, like, and be on that desk and on that set, I still look around and I'm like, this is nice. Like, this is cool.
God is doing crazy things right now.
I'm like, what are you doing? I don't know if I'm like prepared or ready for this, but I just kind of took off running and I never looked back. And it's been so much fun and I love it.
I always talk when I ask athletes, I say, tell me about your first day, getting called up to the big leagues. So the equivalent of that for you, Ash, is probably like getting called up to do SportsCenter for the first time. Do you remember your first show? Who was it with?
It was me and Ryan Smith.
Okay.
It was Ryan Smith, who I just did a show with today, actually, and I adore him. Yeah. It was a 6 p.m., which is a big deal. It was like on ESPN. I'm like, whoa, okay. And they had been training me, and I did a couple of like walkthrough type situations and shadowing like 2 times. And then once I shadowed, like they didn't tell me you're going to be doing actual SportsCenter. I thought they were just kind of like teaching me how it goes in case you ever do get a shot. Then I got a call like 2 days before and they're like, hey, you're going to do the SportsCenter at 6:00 on Monday. Are you ready? And I was like, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm one of those, like, I'll never turn down a challenge. I'm ready to go. I have a ton of confidence in my ability and who I am. And I'm always like ready to step up. So slept like a baby the night before, like put on my jock jams as I was getting ready, went to work, did the whole show, like getting ready for the prep. And then literally 5 minutes before, Doc Rivers gets fired.
Right.
They're like, breaking news. Everyone's losing their minds. And I'm like, what do we do? Like, what do I say? I don't know. And so we go on air. Ryan says the breaking news. And then they go, Ashley, you're talking to Stephen A. Smith. And I was like, are you sure I'm allowed to talk to him? Like, he doesn't know I am. Like, it was so funny. I did an interview with Stephen A. I wasn't nervous though, weirdly. Like and my producer, Sam Tanucci, who was doing that show, even looked at me afterwards and he was like, it's kind of weird. Like, you weren't nervous at all. And I was like,
that's good.
I don't know. The Lord was with me. I just felt ready for it. It had been a long time coming. I'd been sitting in my apartment for the last 8 months. So I've been like, game, like, let's do it. And so it went really well. Thank goodness they still have me back. I'm still doing it.
Well, it's prep too. I mean, like you've been preparing for this moment. So it should come fairly, I don't want to say it's easy, but it should become something that you prepared for a long time to do. So it's like, all right, let's go.
I also felt like my job in LA prepared me to do a SportsCenter. Like I had my own show on Sunday Night Sports, and I was like solo hosting a 30-minute show every weekend. And then I was doing a lot of other stuff. So like, I was like, I've done this before. It's just, you can either psych yourself out or you can just do it. And I did it.
That's good. I know it wasn't an easy journey to get there.
No.
Because the last time we had you on, it was the fall of 2018 when I looked. And that was, almost 3 years ago now, which is kind of crazy to think about. And God has brought you to so many amazing things since then. But then this whole idea of coming to work for ESPN, it was like a weird time, wasn't it? Because it was right before COVID. It's a dream opportunity, but it's also taking you away from your family and the West Coast where you lived and all the way over to Connecticut in the Northeast where you've really never been. What was that like? Take me back to right before the pandemic and this opportunity that comes your way to go work for the place that you've always wanted. In fact, I think you said it on our conversation that someday you would like to be a SportsCenter anchor.
For sure. Like I knew growing up, seeing women on SportsCenter, I was like, I can do that. I'm going to do that. Like if I want to, I can totally do it. And so I knew getting into TV, it was a matter of like getting the right breaks, getting the right opportunities, but I always knew I was capable.
Right.
And I had conversations with ESPN and some of the people in the talent department over the past few years leading up to actually coming. Hey, would you be interested in coming? Do you want to do some sideline? And I was always like, yeah, like that'd be really cool. But I love my life right now. I had a great life and situation in Los Angeles, and I was so grateful and aware of it. Like I did not take it for granted by any means. I lived 2 blocks down from my parents in California. I lived on the beach, like in Hermosa Beach. I was outside every day. I had a group of great friends. I was in a really great relationship. I lived with my sister and my future sister-in-law. So we had a fun little roommate situation. And then the job was incredible. I got treated so well at ABC7 by everyone I worked with. I got the best opportunities. I was covering the Oscars. I was doing movie premieres. I was doing red carpets. Then I was covering World Series and The
Bachelor too.
And
right?
I did The Bachelor. Like I had it all, like, and I knew it. And I was so grateful. My spiritual life was also amazing. Like I was involved in my church home group on Wednesday nights with Judah Smith. I had to go, I had my church on Sundays that I'd go with my family. So I was like, they offered me the job and I was like, I don't know if this is the right thing. And we went back and forth for literally 2 months praying about it, having my parents pray for me, having Scott Hansen, who I've told you is a close friend, who kind of helped guide me through it as someone who works in the business and has been in it forever. So he helped mentor me through my decision. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll just try. And like nothing's forever and nothing's permanent.
Sure.
And I just like one day was like, okay, tell them I'll go. And I told my agent, just tell them. And they were like, okay, it's happening. And I was like, right after, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I had a freak out where I'm like, I feel like I just sold all of my life away. I panicked. I had like my very quick goodbye tour, which was like 2 weeks before they were like, we're launching this new show. We need you out here. And so it happened really quickly once I like actually said yes.
Yeah.
And then I got here and everything fell apart.
Right. You got here, I want to say it was like a week before the pandemic was declared. Am I right?
Literally
like that?
3 days before. Yeah,
so
I got here.
And then it's like, hey, I'm excited, new show, and watch us on this. And it's like, nope. Nobody can do anything.
No.
Shut down.
It was, first of all, I think everyone was like terrified because we were like, what is this COVID thing? How bad is it? How serious?
Yeah.
Is it going to be 2 weeks? Like, I think at first we're like, oh, it's 2 weeks. We'll be done. And then we'll all be back to normal.
Flatten the curve.
Yeah, just be good. And then it just kept getting more serious, more serious. Oh my goodness, what's happening? And like, it was terrifying. I mean, I remember being really scared and just sitting at my house, at my apartment, alone on my couch, kind of looking around like, now what? So what are we going to do today? What are we going to do today? Like, I tried to fill my days with things that involved going out on runs, going on walks. Then it like snowed 2 times and I was like, what is this? It's like March and May.
Yeah,
and
not good.
I cooked a ton. I got a piano. Like of course, like everyone, like watch Netflix. But it was really difficult and it was a scary time. And then I obviously had that feeling of, oh my goodness, did I make a huge mistake? Right. I moved my whole life out here alone, no one with me. I left a lot of great things back in LA, including a job I loved. And then I come here and like, now I don't know what I have anymore. And I was afraid too, like, oh my goodness, is COVID going to affect my job? Are they going to get rid of it? I just like didn't know what was happening. So it was this very weird feeling for quite a few months where I was just like, what's happening to me? I don't know. It was crazy.
What was that time like with God during that time? Because you're alone. Obviously, the Bible says none of us are ever alone. God is always with us. But when you're alone and you're in a new situation, and I say we as believers are built for, and we actually as humans are built for community, and you are in a place where you can't have any community?
No.
None. What was
Nothing.
that like? I think from more of a, because I remember, we'll tell this story in a second. I remember you asking me like, what are some churches that I can go visit?
Yeah.
And then you went and visited a church that was not the right church. So tell that story in a second, but let's go back. Let's not rush it all, I guess. But spiritually, I have to imagine there was some real kind of back and forth with you and God. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, because I hit a really low point, to be honest. I mean, I came out here and I was excited and I was hopeful and I was like, I was on top. Like, life was good at that point. Once I, was at the end of in LA, like I had it all. And I know people see on social media too, like, here's this pretty tall blonde girl with a really cute blonde boyfriend. And she's covering every, great sporting event in LA. And she has all the followers and she has, great, cool pictures doing this, this, and this. And then I get out here and it's like, wait. Like, I felt like everything that I had got thrown away or I lost. And like I told you, like I went through a breakup that kind of came suddenly and out of nowhere that I was not prepared for, and to deal with the aftermath of that alone in my apartment in the middle of nowhere, in the snow some days, like, then, I told you I got COVID. And so that was, okay, I'm sick now and I'm alone, not seeing my family who I'm so close with. And that was, I think one of the biggest things was just not having the support of my family and my mom, who's my best friend, and my little sister, and my nephew that I love so much, and just the family comfort that I had in LA. I had nothing. And so I went through a really deep period of sadness for the first time in my life, Jason. Like, I have always been the one to look on the bright side and be optimistic and be excited about life. And I've always been the encourager to my friends and always been the person that people call and I can help pray with you and I can help lift you. And I always try to be that person for people, to try to get them through stuff. And then for the first time in my life, I was like, I am not okay. I am so sad. I don't know what my future looks like. I don't know why God is doing this. It was really strange. Like, I kind of wrestled with it for a while because I would pray every single night, God, give me this back. Change this. Change this person's heart. Figure this out for me. Why is this happening? And I went months and months without understanding why any of that happened. I prayed more than I've ever prayed in my life. I read my Bible more than I've ever read. I listened to so many podcasts and spent that time home alone, just really trying to dig in. But I mean, I was lost for a period of time, but I do now know, looking back, God was with me every single step of the way. He was behind every good and bad thing that happened. And I've learned so much, and I've grown so much, and I've matured a lot through all of it. But I do think that, like, if God didn't spare Jesus the pain that he went through, he's not going to do that to us. Like, he's not going to let us live this perfect, awesome life. So while things were really great in LA, I had a point where things were not great at all for me. And I had to really tough it out and grow and get a lot of support from people that I love. And I came out on the other side, like, God willing. But to say I hit rock bottom, like, I truly did for the first time, and hopefully only time. Like, I think about it, I'm like, I hope I never feel pain like that again. But that's the thing, I might. Yeah. And I think I learned that lesson too, that, like, that is life and bad things will happen. And I learned how to deal with it in a really true way by myself alone. And I dug out of it, and I had a lot of help. And now I know kind of how to equip myself if that ever does happen again. That's good. I mean, it's interesting too, when you come to ESPN, and that's a community in itself. I mean, there's 3,000 people that are normally on campus, and there's hundreds of people working in production where you work. And then all of that was taken away too, because it was, I remember talking to Jay Harris, who's a mutual friend, obviously, and a colleague of yours and a former colleague of mine. And Jay would tell me there's skeleton crews in the office. Like, it's just the floor director and the two anchors and maybe one or two people in the studio, and everybody else was remote. And I'm thinking, my gosh, Ash, like, you come here to, like, get immersed into this brand new job, and you can't even find community in your workplace, the one place that you want to find it, because you're here. I know. And you know me, like, I love people. Like, I love my relationships, my friendships. Like, I love to just be around people and to hug people and to just, like, hang out. And that was taken away from everyone. And that was shocking for me, because I'm like, the only thing I can do is, like, call or text people. But for the first time, like, I can't go hang out at a friend's house because I don't have any friends, first of all. But, like, it was just weird not even having the ability to walk in the caf and say, hey, what's up? How are you? I've seen you do this, this, and this. Like, nothing. For literally still to this day, like, it's pretty empty. Things are definitely picking up, thankfully. But it was just bizarre, I think, for everyone. Like, I went through a hard time, but I know so many people had it so much worse. So I never, try to dwell too much in my own struggle and issues that I've been through. Like, there's been so much that has happened to this world over the last year that's been devastating. So I was trying to keep it in perspective too. For sure. Now go back and tell the story of the church, because I remember this, and I remember you posted it, and I'm thinking, because you and I think it's your fault. It might be my fault, because you were asking for some church recommendations. Yep. I, of course, gave you the church that we're sitting in today, and you were like, well, I live a little further away. Is there one that might be up there? And I'm like, yeah, I think it's this church. And I don't remember the name of it now. It might even be the church that you go to. But I said, check that one out. And so you go to a church, and it's the wrong church, right? Yeah. So turns out there are multiple churches with the same name. Yes. And, like, there's nothing you could have done. You gave me the name. And so I put it into my maps, like I think most people do. Like, you put in the mall. Cool. I'm going to type in the mall name, whatever. Put in the church name, showed up. Instantly, I knew something was a little off. Like, it was just a little different. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Jason recommended this one. Because, like, you're a cool dude. Like, it seems like, like the typical, like, kind of type of church you would want to be going to. A young 29-year-old, 27 at that. I don't even know how old it was. But I'm like, this is a little different. So it was a different kind of group there. Right. Then, thankfully I had my mom with me, because if I was alone, like, I probably would have just gotten, like, it was weird. My mom and I are sitting, and she's like, no, this is great. By the way, like, my mom was grown up, like, Church of Christ. So she's, like, she's seen it all. She can go to any kind of church and find something good she's like, we love it all. Whatever. Then, like, the worship was a little different. Like, it was just a little different than what I'm used to. Okay. It was great though, still, whatever, biblically based. And then all of a sudden, like, the pastor, like, says a little quick thing about, like, love. And I'm like, oh, that's nice, whatever. Brings a couple up, and it turns into a wedding. And it was like, this darling, like, young couple. And he's like, he's getting deployed this weekend. So we had to figure out, how to quickly certify their marriage, make this happen. And so my mom and I sat there, and my mom cried at one point. I'm clapping. I'm so excited for them. It was so sweet. But my first day here was a Sunday. I flew in late Saturday night, woke up, went to church. It was actually a wedding. And they were so nice. They invited us to the after party, the reception, everything. We didn't, but it was an interesting experience. So then I actually found out the right church afterwards.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. It's funny thinking you and your mom and your own version of Wedding Crashers without even realizing.
That's what it was, the Christian version. That's what it was. Yeah.
Christian version of Wedding Crashers. Hey guys, let's take a quick break from our conversation here on Sports Spectrum to tell you a little bit more about our friends, our partners, Convoy of Hope. They are a faith-based international humanitarian relief organization, and they have one simple goal: to bring help and hope to those who are impoverished, who are hungry, and who are hurting. You can check them out at convoynation.com. Convoy of Hope is all about engaging, caring, nourishing, growing, responding, and partnering. They do such amazing work. And I'm talking about providing things like free groceries, health and dental screenings, haircuts, family portraits, hot meals, job placement assistance, and much more. They hold these events all around the country that people can get involved with and actually serve and help those in need. But there's also ways for you and I to get involved. Maybe there's not an event right in our backyard, but we can get involved with Convoy of Hope. We can start our own event. We can donate. We can pray for the work that they are doing. They are a great organization, and I highly recommend. Sports Spectrum loves being involved with these guys, and we highly recommend that you would get involved. Check them out at convoynation.com. You can donate, you can pray, and you can be a part of the great work that they are doing, supporting Convoy of Hope's innovative international programs. Check out convoynation.com. We're so glad to have Ashley Brewer here on Sports Spectrum today, and we're doing this in person, so it's so good to see you as well. When we last spoke, so much has changed in sports, and I was thinking about this, and I wanted to ask you about Kobe, because it was somebody that you had interviewed multiple times, I think, at least once, but multiple times, I assume. You're in LA.
Many, yeah.
And covering the Lakers, so, he's out there, and then the accident happens, and I thought, let me just ask, I guess, start with that day and kind of some of the emotions you were going through, because I do want to take this into an area that brings us into faith. But what was that day? I remember where I was. I was in an airplane flying from a speaking engagement in Dallas to the Super Bowl in Miami, and I was on a plane, and I'm watching it on my phone, this coverage that Kobe Bryant had passed, and I'm thinking, no way. And I'm watching people come through the airplane, just kind of walking by, and one stewardess walked by and looked at my iPad and was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
And so people were finding out at that moment while we were on an airplane in the air that this had happened. You were in LA at the time, right?
I was in church.
You were in church that morning.
Yeah, I was in church sitting with my family, and my dad got a few buzzes on his phone and looked down, and it was some TMZ or some kind of alert.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant died. And I looked at my phone, I checked Twitter, and I ran out of church. And at that point, Kobe and I had a great friendship, because he was starting to come out a little bit more and make appearances at different events and do some things with his investments. And then I kept running into him at his office space, which he shared with the Chargers practice facility. So I covered the Chargers a ton, and I got to see him all the time, and he was so good to me. But I had seen him 1 week before. And that was the craziest thing, was that it was I literally just talked to him for 20 minutes the other day in person.
Yeah. And
we were chatting, and we were talking about family and talking about having him come out to a hockey game, and we were going to sit together. And so it was wait, what? No, I just saw you. And then it's wait, it's Kobe Bryant, and he's not alive anymore. It was for everyone, the most surreal, bizarre day that I think everyone was just kind of floating around. Wait, no. I immediately, I got in my car and was in shock the whole car ride. I couldn't even get a tear out, because I was no, that's not right. There's no one knew what was going on, I think, at first.
And then no one knew who
was with him.
Yeah.
And then I found that out on the drive. And then I got on set. I was still a little just shaken up and just freaked out, got on set and just like lost it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I know I'm live on TV right now, but I just saw you and you're my friend and you're amazing and I've idolized you my whole life. But then your daughter's involved. And then it's not just your daughter, it's a bunch of other young women. And then their parents as well involved. And it's an absolute tragedy. That day was just one of the hardest for sure. I mean, it was awful. And even to this day, like I have days where I think about him or I'll see something and I'll cry because it breaks my heart. Thinking about how special he was and supportive. And we had talked about me coming to ESPN too. So, how wonderful he was to me and how I always thought like, oh, this is just such a wonderful person that I can learn so much from. And then that being taken away and then him being taken away from the world and so many people who loved him and then thinking about Vanessa and their daughters. And now that they are missing him and it is the worst thing ever. And I think still in our lives, it's one of those things like we go back to that day where you're just like, I can't believe that happened. And it's the craziest thing. I'm not sure I'll ever like get over it because it was just so strange. It's
a year and a half later now as we record this, and yet it feels like yesterday. And you know, all you got to do is turn on the TV and the NBA playoffs are on and you think about Kobe. Yeah. You know, because LeBron and Kobe had battles for years and LeBron is still playing. And just see that. And I just think about moments where you have to kind of push forward, right? And, you know, I remember working at ESPN when 9/11 happened. And I remember working at ESPN when, you know, like Junior Seau passed away and a lot of these tragic moments, and you kind of pick up and you push forward with work. Yeah. And you had to go on air. Immediately because you're the sports anchor for ABC LA.
And I'm like, I just lost a friend.
Right.
And I'm trying to hold it together. And I don't know the right words to say. And I'm still new in this business too. I was, like 27? Like, I'm like, how do I go on like a seasoned veteran and eloquently explain what's happening, also not say anything that could be insensitive to the victims of the crash, or you have to be very careful.
Yes.
But they told me, and like my boss he was amazing. And he told me, I want you to go on and share your stories and your personal friendship and what he meant to you and what you've heard he's meant to other people that like you and other athletes. Share that human side, because we'll let the news anchors share the X's and O's of what happened.
Sure.
And so I got to sit there and talk about what an impact he had and what a great person he was. And the interactions that I saw him with other people, like the security guards at Staples Center. So I got to speak on that. And so while I still broke down and like, I can't say I got it right, like, and perfect, like I am really, I'm thankful I got that opportunity to share that because I got so many people that really appreciated it. Yeah. But it was a great learning lesson for me. And, you know, it was just like surreal. Like I said it a million times, like it was just crazy, but I'm thankful I got to share those moments and, have that experience. But still one of those things to this day, it's like, I just wish that didn't happen.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all agree with that. One of the things I think it did for me, because it forces, I think death just forces us to think about faith anyways, right? Like, what do we believe? You know, the idea that God can take any of us away at any time, and we don't really think that. And then you lose an icon in the sports world at 41 years old or whatever he was, and he's gone. And obviously his daughter too, and so many others that were on that helicopter. And you just think like, wow, it really is surreal, like you described, but it's also like real life. Like bad things like this happen. You just don't think they'll happen to Kobe Bryant. Yeah. My question for you though, Ash, is what did that do for you as regards to your faith? Because I know a lot of conversations of faith happened in and around. I remember that Super Bowl week. We were in Miami that week, just on Radio Row, just trying to go about covering that Chiefs 49ers game. And everybody was talking about Kobe, but it opens up dialogue to talk about like life.
Well, when you do
and the fragility of
die,
life.
Where do you go?
That, exactly.
And that to me was the one comfort that I had through all of it, knowing Kobe's heart was with the Lord and that he was a believer and a man of faith. And he went to church that morning.
I saw that. Yes.
Of the crash.
Yeah.
So to me, to say that when he died, being a father to his daughter and holding her and being with her in this, most tragic, scary moment. But he also died on that final day, creating that day, starting with being
time with
at
God.
church and spending time with God. And that was the first thing he did that day before going to his daughter's game. So you find comfort in something like that. But to me, absolutely, it was a totally a time of self-reflection. I would say for the kind of couple weeks following that, thinking about, well, yeah, if this were to happen to me or my family or someone, I mean, that you're right. Life is over unexpectedly in an instant, and it can happen to anyone. And it's like, I think we think of people like Kobe, like, you never think they'll die. You think they'll die someday when they're 110 years old from just old age, but it can happen at any moment. And I think it made me understand even further how fragile and quickly things can be taken away. And then made me realize, like, every day that I do have on this earth, it could be 1, it could be 5,000, it could be, I don't know when it'll be, but I do know that there is purpose in every day that I live. So that's one thing I understood about Kobe, was that, like, that sadly, from a Christian perspective, he was given 41 years.
Right.
And poor Gianna was given, 14 years. Yeah. I'm still here at 29, and every day I wake up, there is a purpose and there is a reason. And I don't always understand. And I think, like I said last year, when I was going through a really difficult time, just being alone out here, I remember just what is my purpose, and why am I still here and doing this and this? And what is the reason why I'm doing this today? And what is this going to lead to? I don't always understand, like, what the reason is, but I know that God has brought me here for something, and he wouldn't allow anyone to wake up each and every day without some reason. And it will all lead to something at some point. And when it becomes my day, I'm totally at peace with that, because I know that that was the plan he had for my life. And so I do kind of now have a sense of, like, I'm so grateful for every day I do have. And so many people weren't afforded that in that crash. But I'm here today, and I plan to hopefully maximize those opportunities.
Yeah, we just don't know, right? I mean, we just don't know. What was, when you mentioned 2020 and kind of going through what you went through, was there a story or a scripture or something in the Bible that you related to that kind of just, you were like, okay, I think I read this a lot differently now than maybe I did before?
Consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face adversity and trials of all kinds. Yeah. Because in that, it produces character. And that, to me, I used to repeat that to myself out loud. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm so miserable. I'm so alone. I'm so sad. I am going through a really difficult time. I miss my family. I just want to be hanging out with my mom and dad right now. But I would say, consider it pure joy when you face trials of all kinds. And I just remember sitting there thinking, where's the joy in this? Like, how do I smile? I can't smile. I'm sad. I'm not feeling great today. I don't want to do anything today. Yeah. I don't know when I'm going to get to see my family again. I don't know when I'm going to get to go to work again. I don't know when I'm going to even make a friend. And so I continued to lean on that verse, that for some reason, that what I was going through last year, and especially, last spring and summer, that it would produce some kind of character and things in me that I didn't have, that maybe I thought I had, but it would produce something, and that I needed that. And so I found joy in knowing that God was working behind the scenes, and that he was doing something with my pain and with my loss and my sadness and my sickness and everything that I went through. And I just knew there is a reason and there is purpose. And I have to be thankful that God is giving me that opportunity to feel pain and to grow and to get stronger. And now I sit here a year later and I'm like, thank goodness. I told you, like, thank goodness this one thing happened to me. Thank goodness that breakup happened and I don't have this and I don't have that. And I thank God that he protected me from things that weren't meant for me. And at the time, I was certain they were meant for me. I was like, no, my life is going this way. And God was like, no, we're going to get it. We're going to make a right here. We're going to make a quick, sharp turn. But I thank God that he knew better than I knew for myself, because I was probably headed in a way that was not going to be ultimate happiness and wasn't going to be probably the best way that I could serve the Lord. Yeah. And so he knew that I needed something different, and it was tough and it was hard. But like I said earlier, Jesus went through tough and hard. He went through a whole lot worse. And so for me to think that everything should be sunshine and rainbows and cupcakes is just so naive and not right. So I went through a lot. I grew a lot. I'm so strong. And I'm grateful. And so now I find joy in the pain and the situation I was in last year.
I think about that word endurance too, which I think is in that scripture, and just that idea of enduring. It feels like that's what you were
for a long time.
You were doing.
Oh my gosh. Cause I can't even tell you how many, like there was, like I want to write a book about it someday. Many things.
If I can write 2 books, you can do it.
Okay.
Ash. I promise
There were so many things that happened that like me and my family talk about now that I'm like, it's almost like a joke. We have a thing in my family that we know. Ashley has the best and the worst luck of any human.
Okay.
We know. I could go on for days about the crazy stuff that's happened to me. Really amazing. Like, how did I get so lucky? And then like really bad that we're like, why that only happens to
what did I do to deserve
like what if
this?
that is only an Ashley that she would get something so crazy and bizarre.
Yeah.
But like I had so many different stages of bad things happen, and it was like it felt like every week some new hit kept coming, something bad happened, something was taken away. And I just remember being like, what are we doing? Like, why is this happening? God, are you like, I literally said, like, are you pulling a prank on me? Like, is there some kind of joke to be made out of all this? Like, do you have a sense of humor? I can't fathom why things have been so good for so long. And then bang, 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 all these bad things happen. And so, like you said, enduring through that, praying my way through it every single day, having my parents like literally calling me nonstop, talking through things with me, helping guide me, having friends mentor me and help guide me through some of the things I went through because maybe they experienced something different. So I endured, I would say 6 months of a lot of struggle and hard times, but I endured. I'm not like done for like, you know,
we're always enduring.
We're always,
like, right?
you keep going and dealing with certain things in your life.
Yeah.
But I think my mission now is to help someone that went through some similar situation that I went through. Maybe it's a young girl going through, you know, a tough time or a job change or a move across the country or a breakup or something similar to what I went through when you thought you had everything figured out and then it did not go the way you thought. And I hope that I can help someone someday. And I think that's maybe why those things happen to me.
And when you endure, and if you're going through something, what do? You get a dog.
Yes, you get Hank. That's what you do, obviously.
Tell me about Hank.
Yep. Hank is the greatest blessing I could take away from 2020. He came into my life. Oh, my parents gave him to me for my birthday in December.
Yeah.
And like the first time I saw him, I just like lost it. I started crying. I was like, he's so perfect. He's so amazing. And I always like saw people that had dogs and I was like, dog people are kind of weird. Like
a little bit.
Like
yeah.
I was like, people are so obsessed with their dogs. They treat them like humans. They're like way too over obsessive and weird and crazy. I'm not psycho now. Like I literally think about my dog before I think about myself. I'm obsessed with him. He just makes me so happy. My days revolve around, okay, we're going to walk at this time. We're going to eat at this time. Like I just love him and he's become like my BFF, just my best buddy. And to me, like I needed that. I was alone out here. It was really hard with no one being out here with the pandemic and, you know, work not really picking up for quite some time. And so to have him be like a steady staple in the middle of my day and to wake up and be like, okay, what are we going to do with Hank today? Like I needed that. And it's been amazing.
I want to ask you about social media too a little bit. And we talked a little bit about, you know, sort of the platform that, you know, different people have to share their faith and to be open. But when you go from working in LA to working for ESPN and now the world is watching, or at least the country is watching, that's a lot more people.
Yeah.
What have you seen, the good, the bad, the ugly on being on social media and kind of navigating through that? I mean, we saw a lot of, too, with all that was happening in our country in the past year too, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What's your take on social media? Because you post pictures on Instagram of Hank and you and things like that, but you're mostly sports from what I gather. You don't veer off too much from that.
I try. I've gotten
Twitter.
more and more private. The more I've grown and gotten older and more mature, I've decided to be more private. I've also had like things happen in my life that I'm like, I got to be more careful about this. Or, if I share too much, it's probably just going to backfire and hurt. So I just have learned a few lessons that sometimes oversharing is not the right way to go. So I try to stay pretty much sports and work focused and then sprinkle in a little personal life, because I know people do wonder and enjoy that. And I do want people to obviously get to know me and what a great person I am and what a great personality I know that I have. So I do want to be able to share. And I still I struggle with should I put this out there? Should I even mention that I went on this trip, or, I'll share this person in my life? Probably not. It's kind of hard finding that balance. I think if you ask anyone, I'm sure most people struggle with that in my position, because it's I do want people to get to know me, but not too much, and not to the much where they feel like they have the right to say things that they have no business even knowing about. You know what I mean? So, social media is a weird thing, Twitter especially, because it gives every random Joe out there the opportunity to talk to me when without that, they would never get to talk or meet me. And so I never let the negative comments really get too far, because I also don't let the positives get too far, you know? Yeah. So I think there's a level where you just have to stay kind of right there in the middle. You can't get too excited about the praise or, the people that think you're the greatest thing in the world, just like the people who think I'm the worst in the world, don't really matter. Because I've told you this too, I care about a very small handful of people's opinions about me.
Right.
And that would be my direct bosses. They matter a lot. I care about my mom, especially because she was in television and she's my best friend. And my family, I care a lot about too. And then that's about it. Right. I really just care. If someone that I really respected in television, I don't know, who could that be? Sage Steele. I adore her. She's been such a good friend to me.
Sage
I love her.
Yeah.
If Sage were to tweet at me that Ashley Brewer stinks, I would die, because I love Sage so much and I want her to like me, because I respect her and I respect her opinion and I really care about who she is, and she's been a good friend. So people like that, I care. Any random weirdo on Twitter, and if he said the same thing that someone said, then that would have absolutely no weight to me, because I care a lot about Sage's advice. I care about her opinion. So those kind of people, I'll take what they say to heart. I will care about that. But anything else, I'm so you just have a keyboard, buddy. Who cares?
Well, compounded too with being a woman in a male-dominated field, that's got to be even more difficult. Just trying to, I guess, prove yourself, and you've clearly been doing that, which is great to watch.
Thanks.
But hearing from people who just have sometimes nonsense to say, and you're trying to just do your thing.
Yeah,
it's gotta be hard.
Yeah, I don't really think of it that way. Good. Weirdly, I actually think that I have gotten a lot more advantages because I'm a woman. Certainly, there's things people probably think, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She never played football. She never played baseball.
Sure.
But I know my strengths, and I know how much I love the game of baseball, and I love hockey, and I love certain things. And I know that no one can emulate the personality I have and the sense of humor I may have. And so I've always been very confident enough in my ability that no one can do what I do, but that in a way that the next girl, that she might be another 29-year-old blonde, she might know something more about football and college football than I know. So I think I never compare myself to other people. I never worry about oh man, I'm on with Stephen A. and Stephen A. knows everything about everything and he's so amazing. And I don't really get too intimidated, because I'm I'll leave that to Stephen A. Ashley Brewer is great at reading highlights, and she's great at making fun of herself and kind of being conversational. And that's what I bring to the table. And so I know what I do. And I think I learned pretty early on in my career, I could not fake being anyone else. You're not going to get far if you do try to be like anyone else. I think there were women I loved and looked up to, Erin Andrews and Sam Ponder, and I would study them and watch them. And then I'm but I don't talk like that. And I don't know what they know, and they don't know what I know. And there's just differences in personality and who we are. And so I learned to be myself really quickly. And it's served me well. It's gone great. And I also am never satisfied where I'm at too. Like I want to continue to grow and learn, and I'm super hungry and curious about so many different things. So I feel like I'm like a rookie and I'm still getting started, and I'm good enough, I guess, to be doing the things that the bosses believe I can do. So they put me in these positions, but like, man, I got to get so much better because I want to do this for a long time.
Yeah. I think too, having a mom who was in the business helps, and kind of having a mentor from a very young age to watch and see and emulate must have been pretty cool. But also now that you even mentioned this to me, you're in a position where you can mentor younger people who are 17, 20, 22, 23 that are coming up and want to do what you're doing, and say, hey, this is great, but be you, don't be me.
For sure. Well, it's funny. I have 2 phone calls after we do this, helping younger college students and helping them navigate. One is in her first job and then the other's in college. But to me, God did not put me here and give me all this success at a very young age for me to like soak it all in for myself and be selfish. Like, I'm sorry, like this isn't about me anymore. Right. I really want to leave behind a legacy of making people feel loved and cared for. And that's like my whole mission, is that I just want people to feel good after leaving, hanging out with me or talking to me. And so I always tell girls, and I can't tell you, I get DMs like every single day from young girls that are like, I want to be you. You're my hero. I'm like, no, you're awesome.
It's
you're
gotta be
beautiful.
Flattering, but at the same time,
kind of. I'm like, you're awesome though. Like, why?
Right.
Like, you're great. Like, I'm like, I don't know. Like, people, I think, look at me and think like one thing, like everything's perfect and working. We talked about this. Like, you see one thing on social media, and I'm like, I'm sure people thought that last summer. Like, I'm posting this and I'm like, I cried all day because I'm sad and I had a tough day and I don't know where my life's going. And so I look at a lot of girls and I tell them, like, you have been given so many God-given gifts that make you you, and I have been given mine, and you have to play up to your strengths and play up to your abilities. And so I just always try to encourage other people, like, if you're really funny, be funny. Like, don't try to be super serious. Like, work that to your advantage, and it works for different people. And so I just try to push people to be like their best version of themselves instead of being like Ashley Brewer. Because whatever,
well,
there's already me.
I remember an Ashley Brewer that reached out looking for people to critique her reel when she was coming out of college too. I happened to be one of those people. And so cool. I remember when you were 22 or 23 or whatever year that was, and you were coming out just trying to figure out how to pursue your dream and get where you wanted to get to. Oh my gosh, I was such a goofball. I still think about it. But the weird thing is I still feel like that goofball being 22 and clueless. Like, I kind of feel like that way right now, like being the newbie on SportsCenter, being super young and being like, somebody help me, somebody tell me what to do, because I'm still figuring it out. Yeah. But in my mind, I'm not some like 29-year-old SportsCenter anchor. I'm just like a kid, like from California, trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing here and trying to just like have a good attitude and work hard and make the best out of it that I can. So yeah, it is so funny to think about that, because I'm like, life is weird. Like, I never, ever really, I knew I was capable. I just didn't actually think it would actually happen to me. Like, I would get the right breaks, and to go work in Arizona, then to work in Los Angeles at 24, and then 28, move on to ESPN. I didn't see it happening like that. So it's still weird to me. I'm like, what? A lot happened in 7 years. It was quick. A lot. That's cool. Well, this is awesome, Ashley. You're the best. I appreciate you coming in and having an opportunity to sit and chat with you. I love your Beatles shirt, by the way. Thanks. Are you a Beatles fan, or is that just kind of like fashion? Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? I love the Beatles. Raised on it. So really, this is actually an interesting topic that we can end on. First of all, I'm a rock and roll girl till I die. My mom raised me on classic rock. My dad raised me on hard rock and metal. Okay. So I grew up experiencing, so I could like go either way, because Jimi Hendrix was on my wall as a child. Wow. Like, he was on, I get my poster, my whole childhood throughout high school. Jimi Hendrix is like my hero. Led Zeppelin, Beatles. I mean, just I could go down that way. But then, like, of course, I love Blink-182. I love Foo Fighters. I loved Green Day. I still listen to all those guys. But then on the metal side, I have a lot of bands that I love. I grew up literally from 7th grade. My brother took me to Ozfest with him, and I've been going to metal concerts my entire life. Like, I love rock concerts. I love rock music. I don't really dabble in any of the other stuff too much. Like, I just love it. Yeah.
So Metallica is like my favorite band all
I love
time.
Metallica.
It was funny, like Pantera is another band that I really like.
And they're a little heavier.
They're
a little
really
harder.
heavy.
Yeah.
I wore a Pantera t-shirt to work the other day because I wear this to work and then I put like my dress on before I go on air.
Sure. It'd be funny if you wore a Beatles shirt on air.
I know, that was like the joke. I was like, should I rock Pantera on air? Whatever. And it was cool because like all the old dudes were like, yeah, Pantera. That like my friends are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you told people you like that. You know, because my close friends know I listen to the music I do, but like not many other people. So I posted that and it was interesting because I got a lot of feedback from that. People who loved it and like, oh, that's cool. Like you're a really nice, like conservative blonde girl and you like metal. That's weird. I actually got a few messages from believers that were really like torn up about me listening to metal.
Wow.
And it really was interesting. And it kind of actually for a few days, like I was kind of sitting around like thinking about it and dwelling on it and kind of like wrestling with it. But I had someone who reached out and he actually had like a pretty big following. I think he works in media. I don't know. Okay. And reached out and said, I was really disappointed to see you wearing a Pantera shirt because it doesn't stand for what I think you and how you've been outspoken about being a believer, which I love also. Like we talked about social media. I think it's a duty of mine to let people know my purpose and that I am a Christian and who I am. Yeah. He said it doesn't align with that. And I just want to let you know I was disappointed. And I sat there and I was like, okay, there are like many different ways to respond to this guy. Maybe just ignore him. But it actually kind of bothered me because I did get a couple like that. And I was like, you know what? I wrote back to him. I said, I really appreciate your message. And you weren't the only one that felt that way. And I think that's a really interesting thing to bring up. And I want to let you know, I have always like kind of wrestled with that, with the kind of music I've listened to. And I think every Christian does, whether it's rap or rock. Yep. And so like there are songs that I filter out because I know that is not something I should be feeding my soul. Like there is a song by a band I love called Avenged Sevenfold. They have a song called God Hates Us. And I remember seeing that on the CD when I bought it. And I was like, I will never listen to that song. I've never listened to it. I've listened to the whole album, but I won't listen to that song. I still love the band because they have so much great music. A lot of it isn't even explicit. And so I'm like, I think I can enjoy that music without really supporting someone that would say that or believe that. So I told him, listen, I'm very careful to, I don't know the right word, but to kind of like pick around what is right and discernment completely. Yeah. And I think I have followers or Christian friends that love rap music. And I see stuff in that all day where I'm like, yikes, like I would not, if I have a kid, he is not listening to that. You know what I mean? So I learned a really interesting, it was an interesting experience that day.
What's the difference between between that and wearing a
Tupac?
I was even going to go further, like in sports. I'm wearing a Celtics shirt, right? And they might have a player on their team that did something terrible, and it's like, oh, I'm representing the Celtics because I'm a Christian. I shouldn't be representing them because they have that person on their team. And it's like, I'm just a fan of the Celtics.
That's the thing. I'm not like, so I told him, I was like, by wearing Pantera, it's that I really love their music, and it's not that I do everything that Dimebag Darrell did, who was, and I'm like, it's not that I live my life by every word. Just like if you have a friend, you don't do every bad thing the friend does. Like it's just I don't know. It was a really weird thing.
I love the Beatles.
Good.
So when I see your shirt,
I love rock. I try to just do the best I can. That's all I can ask for.
Listen, if as long as you're feeding your soul properly first, you should be able to enjoy a good movie or a band like the Beatles or rock or music. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. I called my mom afterwards too. And I was like, what do you think? And she said, I remember my mom not allowing me to listen to Elvis and even Hendrix and all those guys because it was, they're doing drugs, they're rock and roll, they're shaking their hips, the Beatles. It was about, sex and whatever. And my mom was like, my mom had a really hard time with me. And my mom's like, listen, I taught you to love rock music. So I think you should enjoy it. But I think, like you said, discernment and knowing right from wrong and knowing that's probably the boundary. That's probably where I stop. I probably shouldn't, feed into this too much or be around something like this. So I think I was raised in a really great way to know the line. And I always draw the line there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I try to do with my daughter. Like I don't keep all these things away from her. Let her experience the world, but give her the foundation so she knows how to stand on that house that doesn't crumble.
Yep.
This is great.
Yeah,
Ashley, you're awesome. Thank you. This was a lot of fun. I
you.
appreciate you. And let's do it again soon now that you're in town.
I'm right across the street. Love it. Thanks so much for having me.
And thanks to my friend Ashley Brewer from ESPN for joining us today on Sports Spectrum. That was a fantastic conversation on a lot of different topics, social media and perception and identity, and even going through it, some really tough valley type of moments and situations that Ashley went through in 2020 and coming out of that and God sustaining her. Also enjoyed the conversation about Kobe and her relationship with Kobe Bryant and just getting to interview him, getting to know him, the person that Kobe Bryant was. And I also loved talking to Ashley about just how she got to ESPN and how it all came about and kind of living the dream from a professional perspective, working as a SportsCenter anchor at ESPN. And she's not even 30 years old yet, doing amazing work. But then the outside world seeing that she's at ESPN and thinking everything's fine, but really behind the scenes, things are difficult. And that's how I think all of us are. You know, we can paint this picture on Instagram, showing our highlights and letting people know, hey, I'm great. Look at this picture. Look at how awesome I am. Look at how awesome this situation was, whatever it is. But deep down, I think we're all going through it on some level. And it's hard for us to open up. And I'm glad Ashley opened up. I'm glad she shared about that here on the show today, because hopefully it maybe convinces you, the listener, right now to open up to someone. Find someone that you can confide with in your family, at your church, a close friend. Don't hold it back. Talk to someone if you're going through it and see if they can help you. Even just see if they'll listen, right? So we can all have someone that we can share with and be open with. And I just appreciate Ashley for sharing her story and kind of what she has been going through from her perspective over the past year. She's great. And I hope we can get her back on the show again and do it in person again. She was very gracious to drive over to our church here in Connecticut, just a few miles from ESPN, and sit down and have that conversation today. I enjoyed it very much and appreciate Ashley for being here today on the show. We also appreciate you, the listener, for tuning in. It means so much. It really does when you check out our show. We are the intersection of sports and faith. We bring Jesus back into the sports conversation. That's what we're about. We're not about forcing faith on anyone. We're not about shoving the Bible down people's throats, but we are unashamed in who Jesus is. And I believe there are many athletes and coaches and other people in the world of sports like Ashley Brewer who want to live a life that is pleasing to God. And we want to tell that story. And so that's what we are here at Sports Spectrum. And so glad that you tuned in to our show today. Please check out sportsspectrum.com before you exit this conversation. That has all of our content. It has podcasts, devotionals, articles, and stories. You can check them out at sportsspectrum.com. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter right there at the top. Just click the newsletter icon, and you'll be good to go to stay in tune to all that we have going on here at Sports Spectrum. And then click that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode here of Sports Spectrum's podcast. Been around for over 4 years now, a couple million downloads, an audience that we're just so thankful to have, and that includes you, the listener. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum. Have a great rest of your day. Please do stay safe.